Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Patricia Kingston. I'm the Corporate Events Officer at Tourism NI, and I'm delighted to welcome you all along here this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the first of our TED Expert sessions for the 24-25 Tourism Enterprise Development Programme that we've just really kicked off in the last couple of weeks. So we're delighted this morning to be joined by Elaine McAnaugh, who is a Tourism and Hospitality Specialist with Runda Hospitality and Tourism Solutions, with over 20 years of senior experience in the sector. So we're in very safe hands this morning. Over the next hour or so, Elaine's going to be providing practical guidance on how to set and review pricing strategies and maximise sustainable growth. And is going to be explaining some of the potential pitfalls of short-term pricing strategies as well. So if you have any questions at all for Elaine during the session, just be sure to pop those into the question box at any time during the presentation, and we will pick up as many of those as possible at the end. So I know for a fact it's a jam-packed presentation this morning and lots of really useful information to cover. So let's get straight to it. It's my great pleasure to introduce and hand over to Elaine McAnaugh. Good morning, Elaine. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Patricia, for the lovely warm introduction. I am delighted to be here on behalf of Tourism Northern Ireland to bring this webinar to you on the very important subject of the business of pricing. So this is going to be a focus webinar. We're going to be talking about strategies to maximise sustainable growth and really understand the potential pitfalls of short-term pricing. As Patricia said, we're going to be together for less than about an hour. So I hope wherever you are, whether you're at your desk or whether you're at the sofa, that you're here with us for this time. And please feel free to think of any questions throughout the session, and we'll be able to address those at the end of the webinar. So thank you all for joining in this morning. So first of all, the key content that we're going to be covering today, we're going to be talking about the pricing landscape, number one. Number two, we're going to be focused on value pricing. Number three, we're going to be rethinking pricing. Number four, I'm going to be addressing considerations for building your pricing strategy. Number five, I'm going to be showing you how to build your own price model. And number six, I'm going to show you some resources, and we're going to touch on B2B pricing, otherwise business to business pricing. And as I said, there'll be a chance to ask any questions at all at the end. So thanks again for everybody. So first of all, let's get started on the pricing landscape, okay? So in tourism, I am conscious that there are lots of diverse businesses. So even today, tuning in, we have accommodation providers, we have visitor attractions, we have activity experience providers. I know there are event festival organisers on this webinar. We have tourism transport organisers, we have tour guides, there's venues, hotels, hospitality, places to eat, places to drink and to socialise. So we need to be really aware of this, that in tourism, we're always pricing for lots of different scenarios for different diverse business needs. So I really want to try and address all of that for you today. You're going to have different challenges, when it would come to pricing in your own business. So the purpose of today is to help all of us and to really start thinking collectively that, it's Team Northern Ireland, and that ultimately we all have the one goal, that we want to promote our destination and that we want to get this right from the outset. So I'm going to do my best to address each and every one of you on this. So focusing on price points, okay, the price points that we're going to be considering today, number one is your cost of sale. Okay, so what I mean by that is taking into account all of the costs that might be associated to run your particular experience, or perhaps you're a service provider. Number two, I'm going to be talking about break-even point. And when I mention that, what I'm talking about there is you're just covering your costs. You're not actually making any revenue, okay? So number three then is your retail price point. So obviously this is the price that you decide that you're going to sell at, and that's going to be available to the public. You will hear me referring to the B2B price point, okay? And that falls between the break-even and the retail price point. So it's that gap between the two. And this is an important thing just to keep in mind as we go through today's session, because when you set your retail price point, ultimately you could be engaging in B2B pricing at some stage. And when I say B2B, I mean business to business. So don't worry, we're going to go through all of this in detail, and you'll also be getting a copy of these slides after today's session as well. Okay, so retail price points. They can be fixed or they can be dynamic. All right. I'm going to show you both today. Sometimes when we mention the word retail price point, it can be referred to as rack rate, particularly maybe in the accommodation sector and hotels, or it can be referred to as the public rate. Okay. So in other words, when I say the public rate, I mean the rate that is visible directly to the people on your website, for example, so everyone can see that price point. Okay. So fixed and dynamic. Just to dive a little bit further into fixed pricing, just so that we have our heads around it. Fixed pricing is, it remains the same, it's static, okay? So I have some examples there that you can have a little look at of fixed pricing and what's included within that price point. So really clear, for example, a guided hike priced at £35 per person. And you can see what's included there. A craft workshop, £65 per person. So, that's 1 hour. A lunch, perhaps £20 per person. And there's a fixed menu there with no choice. Or perhaps it's for a coach and it's an evening transfer, £180 per person. So when we set fixed price points, the business needs to ensure that what is included in the price is clearly stated so that the customer has a really clear understanding of what they're going to get in return for the price that they're paying. Okay, so always keeping that in mind, that it's really, really clear and really easy to understand from the customer's point of view. Now, talking about dynamic pricing, it's moving according to demand. So a lot of us have become accustomed to airline pricing. They would have been the first really to have, suppose, introduced dynamic pricing. You're familiar with the first seat is generally less expensive than the last seat on the plane, okay? Some accommodation providers would operate on fixed pricing, but many hotels have adapted and use dynamic pricing. So therefore, the principle is the same as the airlines, whereby that first bedroom is sold at a lower rate and the last room available could be sold at a higher rate, or perhaps around a high demand period, maybe during a concert or a particular event, the accommodation is going to be sold at a higher rate. So that's your dynamic pricing. An example of that, just say in a fictitious example, a hotel may be selling dynamic pricing. They might opt for a lower price point like £120 on a quiet date, then on a slightly busier date, £160, and on a very busy date, £230. But they would have a grid like this where they would have their price point set out from the beginning so that it's planned and they have a strategy there and that they know where their starting point and where that end point is, so that it's planned and that they can make those decisions depending on the demand on the business at that time. Okay. So just to go through now and get our heads thinking about value. Okay. We've considered fixed and dynamic pricing. So what's meant by value pricing? Put simply, value pricing means the customer is getting a price that they can say is worth it. Okay. So in other words, the service or the product that you're purchasing feels worth it. Okay, the price is not too low and the price is equally not too high. So in other words, it's that direct correlation between the offer and the price. Okay, and it's allowing your business to achieve profitability, which is what we want. We're in the business of generating revenue, but yet we're maintaining a strong reputation and we're achieving that customer satisfaction. So really, really important that we get that right, and that we understand that as well from our own side. So just think, wherever you're sitting, be it now, maybe it's at your desk, as I say, maybe you're on your sofa. Think really about value pricing. Just say, I was inviting you along for breakfast. We're all paying for our own, okay? And the breakfast is £30. So we get there, we arrive for our breakfast, and it turns out it's going to be a really nice place. It's £30. So you have expectations built up in your mind what you're going to get for that breakfast. When we get there, it turns out to be a coffee and a croissant. How are you feeling? How do you feel about that? That's an excessive price point for what you're getting in return. So naturally, you're going to feel disappointed. In some cases, you could actually say you feel cheated. Okay. We need to be really, really cautious of that. Like, the bottom line, nobody wants to feel that they have paid too much for something or that it's not worth it. So that outcome of being overcharged on a customer, they're more likely to complain, or certainly not to return. So you could damage the reputation of your own business, and that could impact repeat business. And it'll be unlikely that we'll be going back, to that particular place again. So just thinking about that a little bit more, let's say you've booked a really nice hotel, you want to go away, you're going away for the weekend, and it's a luxury 5-star, and the price point is £350 per night. You arrive, the room is really clean, everything is good, but it's fairly basic. There's no special amenities that you'd normally find, even at a mid-range hotel. How do you feel about that? You know, what's going through your mind? Like you've paid, you're really excited about it, you've arrived, and it's just not meeting, what you had in mind expectations wise. So again, you're disappointed. It's that feeling again that you've paid more than what it was actually worth. And when we think about it, tourism, it's all about delighting the customer. It's about creating happy memories. So these examples that I'm talking about here are kind of showing how mismanaging pricing can lead to the exact opposite of that. So, we're all here to delight and create those memories. So it's really important that we get this right and that we keep with that along the journey. Now, I'd say a few of you are familiar with these guys, Oasis. We saw how pricing created enormous upset, okay, when it came to the recent sale of the tickets for the Oasis concert. Perhaps some of you were like me in the queue and you didn't get through. And for others that did get through, they found that they were paying maybe 3 or 4 times the amount, instead of £90, it was £450 for the exact same ticket where they were going to be standing. So, and again, like there's been serious repercussions for this. There's been a lot of bad press. In fact, the organisation, the Consumer Rights in the UK, have asked the band to do the right thing and start refunding the difference. There's been a lot of press around this in The Guardian. They've come out themselves and they've actually expressed dismay and outrage. So this really shows where dynamic pricing can go wrong, okay? Government ministers have even become involved. And you can see that kind of dynamic pricing, it has its place, but when the offer exceeds its value and it creates such huge disappointment, you're going to get this type of negative press. So we just need to be really, really cautious of that, and being sure that the price point isn't exceeding the value when reputational damage effectively can occur, just like this. So perceived value. So when it comes to pricing, we want the price positioned properly so that you feel the true value is reflected. Now, what I don't want to see is someone saying, oh my gosh, I paid a small fortune and it was not worth it. Like none of us wants that, okay? Equally, if I was a business and I had heard this, oh, I'm delighted it was a total steal for that price, I would be disappointed because now I know I've undercharged and I could have made more profit. So that's not either what we're looking for. That can actually damage the business's profitability. So we definitely don't want to be hearing that. What we do want to hear, I'm delighted. That was totally worth it and I will be back. We want to hear this. We know if that's the message that's out there, we're going to have our visitors in Northern Ireland feeling that they've really received value for money and they're going to want to return and they're going to have that natural positive word of mouth. So that's what we want to be hearing. When you're setting pricing, I'm always thinking about reputation, thinking about your own reputation, your business, and thinking about the reputation of the destination of Northern Ireland. Like think about it, there's been so much work put in into Northern Ireland from Tourism Northern Ireland and from yourselves, and it's really having a moment, like it's really in vogue. So we want to really protect that, okay? And for the long term. What can happen if we don't have our pricing set at the right, or if we're changing things and it's not, it can actually reverberate in the marketplace whereby, that word, that negative press spreads. You could damage opportunities, competitiveness for yourself, and again, your own personal reputation, so thinking about all of that, you're always representing your destination. You're part of the team, so you need to be really responsible. It's really imperative that you put lots and lots of thought into your own planning at the outset so that the price is right from the outset. For example, if you go out with one price today and you realize in 6 months, do you know what, I went too low. I need to, really increase this price significantly. That can cause reputational damage, particularly in the international marketplace. If you see that happening across multiple businesses, it could cause visitors to choose another destination over Northern Ireland, and we certainly don't want that. So mismanaged pricing, again, can damage competitiveness and overall reputation. So for us all, we just need to be, really keeping that in the back of our mind all the time, that importance of value for money, that fair pricing. We want long-term sustainability for you individually and for Northern Ireland as a whole, as a destination. So just to have a little look at a few other destinations, how you can see bad press when it's generated can go badly wrong. So here's an example. It's actually a clipping from CNN Travel News, and it is in Italy, where some visitors, tourists, were charged $2 to cut their sandwich in half. So naturally that made the headlines. In Sardinia, tourists were charged $65. I take it these are North American visitors. They ordered 2 coffees and 2 small bottles of water, and they were quoted as paying $65. The owner, when he was asked about it, said, "Oh, well, the price is on the menu, and you're paying for the view of the yachts, the expensive yachts nearby." So you can see naturally how that would cause outrage among customers and among visitors, feeling that feeling of being they've overpriced, they've overpaid for something that wasn't worth the value. Another example here is a clipping from Sardinia. And sorry, this one's actually in Lake Como. The previous one was Sardinia. So they've asked for a sprinkling of cocoa on their cappuccino, and they've been charged an additional 10 cents for that. The local media has dubbed it as crazy, which has got negative press on a local and an international press result. So again, like looking at that, that's CNN travel, really, really big in the North American marketplace. So that's going to reverberate across the marketplace, and people are going to be talking about that destination as expensive. Thinking about emphasizing value, this particular article here from Paul O'Connell highlights the need to call out bad value, but avoiding the term rip off Ireland. Paul was quoted as saying, "People want bang for their buck. Visitors want to feel that they are having a good time without the feeling of being ripped off." So in other words, like it says there, I hate the term rip off Ireland. Tray heaps of pure camping, a family run campsite that was. She doesn't want that because she knows it damages her reputation and it damages the reputation of the destination around there, and no one's benefiting from that impression on either side. So really, really important that I suppose that article's recommending that sense prevails and that everybody follows sense when it comes to their pricing. Okay. So let's have a look now at Northern Ireland in terms of what customers perceive at the moment, okay? Every year, Tourism Northern Ireland collates reports on a number of statistics, and this particular one I'm highlighting here is the value for money sentiment felt by customers, okay? So you can see here from the stats that your Spain is seen there with the highest value for money, and then Northern Ireland is next, okay? However, it has dropped back slightly. The value for money perception was 36% in 2023, and it has dropped to 35 here in 2024. Now, just to be clear, it's only a very slight decline, but we just want to make sure that that doesn't slide any further. And really, really important that we protect this sentiment and that we protect how our customers feel about Northern Ireland. Okay. So thinking now about nurturing and protecting our reputation, as I say, look, we're really in a good place right now. Northern Ireland is really vogue. We want to ensure that people are going to revisit, they're going to talk positively, and that our reputation is upheld throughout, okay? So nurturing and protecting Northern Ireland's reputation, how do we do that? We ensure the offer matches the price, okay? This is really crucial to maintain customer satisfaction. So how do we do that? We align our offers with our price point, and we clearly define what is included. Um, what I mean is that you clearly define what is included, say, in your offer or in your experience. I'm going to touch on that in a little bit more detail as we go through today's session. Okay, so that leads us on to rethinking pricing, making sure that the offer matches the price. So you should really ensure that you're thinking of the scales there. You're not overcharging, you're not undercharging. You're thinking all the time about your own reputation and your own sustainable business growth. Okay, we're here to make sure that that offer matches the price and that that's balanced. Okay. I want to show you some further Northern Ireland visitor stats. Like as I say, so much work has gone into promoting it and it's really paid off. Looking at some of these stats, it's fantastic to see there's been a significant increase in visitors. Um, and 2023 statistics are showing that revenue has actually surpassed 2019 levels. So I'm absolutely thrilled, to be reading that. These reports were out on the 29th of August there, just relating to 2023. So to think that we're back to that stage is fantastic. So looking at overnight visits to Northern Ireland and total nights in spend, there's been 5.4 million trips in 2023, 16.6 million bed nights, and 1.2 billion coming into the economy. So, Northern Ireland Statistics and Research Agency, known as NISRA, released these performance statistics, and you can read more about that online. But just to see that those statistics have come back up, this is really, really important for us, and that we can see Northern Ireland is doing well. And we really want to protect this going forward. So just having a look at it, external visitors were estimated to take 3.3 million overnight trips into Northern Ireland, and it was up on 5.4 million. In 2023, 2.1 million had the overnight trips, and domestic trips made up 40% of overnight trips. So that really highlights the importance of our domestic tourism market also. In 2023, the hotel room occupancy was at 64%. On average, visitors stayed 3.1 nights. They spent around £224 per overnight stay. And one of the most important reasons for visiting Northern Ireland was for holidays, for those escapes and for those stays. So really, really positive results there. So really happy to see that. And that's all down to all of you. Every one of you, like everyone plays that part when it comes to promoting Northern Ireland. So we want to keep that going. So let's think about considerations when you're setting your price point, okay? We've considered the importance of value in our pricing, so now we're going to look at considerations for building your pricing strategy, okay? So first of all, it's really important to understand how is the customer purchasing our tourism products, our experience, or our services. So how are they purchasing? One option could be via direct sales channels. In other words, B2C, I would call it, which is business to consumer. So that could be direct via your website. It could be on the telephone, perhaps it's by email. So when a customer purchases via a direct sales channel, say such as your tourism business, in most cases they're paying like the full retail price point directly to you. Okay. And you're thinking about how is that paid? Is it paid directly, via email? Is it paid directly through your website? Thinking about all of that when you're setting that retail price point and what that's going to look like. The other side then is indirect sales channels. So otherwise known as B2B, business to business. Example of that would be an intermediary, perhaps an online travel agent, maybe a tour operator. Okay, so in this case, when a customer is purchasing that, they are going to be paying via this indirect sales channel. So let's be thinking about that. Is there costs involved with that? How much of a difference does that make to the profit that you're going to receive? What all is involved with that, and how do you get that payment? When does that payment come in? Maybe, you may be waiting for it because it's coming from a third party. So all of these things are really, really important just to keep that in mind. And then you have local partners. So by that, I mean referrals, perhaps from another tourism provider. You may have neighborhood pricing, some of us call it, collaborations, local partners. So how does that payment come in? So again, just having to think about that. Um, those indirect sales channels, And those partner prices, how is that payment coming to you? Being really aware of it. And also keeping in mind your your indirect and your local partners are perhaps paying like a trade rate, which is generally lower than your retail price point, which is your direct rate. So having that in your mind all the time when you're setting the price point, that your retail price point allows for this. Okay. So what are the disadvantages of you not having a pricing strategy? Okay, I'm going to show you how to build your pricing strategy, but before I do it, I want you to be aware of, why you should have it and some of the disadvantages of not having a strategy or a long-term pricing strategy in this case. You can erode your long-term profitability. What do I mean by that? For example, you could gain in the short term, but you're going to lose out in the long term. Okay, so it's really important that we think about that. We think about the reputation, as we've talked about. We think about customer trust issues. Frequent price drops and can actually damage and create confusion and mistrust amongst customers. Competitive disadvantages, again, like sometimes we can ignore what's happening. We're following maybe what our competitor is doing, and we can actually ignore the customer responses. So really important that we think about that and that we avoid that. And again, our destination perception, we don't want to damage that. Now, highlighting, thinking about the advantages of having a planned, sustainable pricing strategy. What does that look like? Your pricing should reflect value. It should encourage positive reputation for you and for the destination. It'll encourage repeat customers and it'll create a really positive word of mouth. So a really important outcome for tourism businesses is to understand when you're setting price that the price should reflect value and the experience offered while ensuring that we can go after a wide range of opportunities. Okay, so striking that balance in pricing maintains that positive reputation, all in all, which will contribute to the long-term success and the sustainability to the business and to the destination. And that's really what we all want. We all have that one goal. So really, really important that we get this right. So just for clarity, this particular webinar is focusing on pricing in the context of leisure tourism, okay? So in other words, for holiday makers, okay? So just around that, I just want you to have a little think and get your heads around the different pricing models. We've mentioned direct and indirect collaboration partners, and I'm going to show you examples for each of these, okay? But to be clear, the retail price point is visible to the public, okay? So first off, just say, for example, it is priced at £10. That's the retail price point, and everyone can see that because it's there, open to the public. It's online on your website. Your business to business price, sometimes can be known as net or discounted, is where an intermediary is paying slightly less than the retail rate. Okay, so for example, if the retail price point is £10, then perhaps your net price point could fall between £7 and £9. Okay, your business to business commissionable price could be various percentages, again, where the intermediary is paying less than the retail price point. So perhaps there's a commission rate of 10%, 15%, again, of that right price point. And then finally, partnership pricing. So this is similar to maybe where you're working with maybe another tourism provider within the area, someone that you know or someone that you're working with perhaps in the local community, and you might arrange a closed partnership discount. Perhaps it's 10%, sometimes known as a community discount. So we reference that as sales via collaboration. So when we're building our pricing models, keeping in mind retail price, B2B, in other words, business to business, B2B commissionable pricing, and our partnership pricing. We need to allow for all of that. So let's think, first of all, these are examples of net pricing and also commissionable pricing. So looking at the first example here, the best of Northern Ireland in under a week. So that is net pricing. It's an example where you personally, as an accommodation provider or an experience provider, or perhaps a service, you've offered a discount and you've given that to perhaps a tour operator where you've given them a discount and then it's packaged. So the public is not aware of that discount that you've given. It's been bundled together. And in this case, there's a 5-night offer that's given all bundled together. So in other words, it's generally offering really good value and it has all the inclusions detailed, okay? And your price is hidden within it, but you know you've given that discount. Thinking then about commissionable pricing, that could be like an online travel agent. The example there is Belfast Bike Tours, so that's with Viator. Um, it's really important to be mindful that commission rates can vary depending on the type of online travel agent that you're working with. It can be anything. They could be 20%, it could be up to 30%, for example. So really, really important that when you put out that retail price point that you're allowing for that in the back of your mind, that if you put the price point out here, in this case, it's £30 for this particular experience, that they're paying commission for that in the background. And when we're thinking about various online travel agents, there's TXGB, which I can talk a little bit more about later. That's now available through Tourism Northern Ireland. It's offering lower rates of commission. You can even set up your own business listing within that to promote your business to third parties. Another one is Get Your Guide, which is very popular. And there's lots of different online travel agents, but it's really, really important for you that you're aware of the various rates of commission and that you do your homework when you're deciding which one you're going to work with and what's right for you and your own business. So looking then at package pricing. So a good opportunity to engage is through partnerships. So in this case, depending on the package, your full retail price point could be included, or you may offer a discounted rate that is something that you've negotiated. Okay, so it's important that when these types of packages go to market, that they're reasonable. So you can see one there, it's a round golf included in a stay in Clamboyd Lodge. And again, you see the total price. So the bundle is hidden within it, and you can see that you have good value there for one night B&B, and you have a 3-course meal, and you have a round of golf for £245. Another example there is from Calevi Castle, whereby they have collaborated with Forest Bathing. And in that instance, they've put together and at one price point. So the consumer is paying Calevi Castle, and then they will make the payment to the experience provider. So these are things that you may do in your own business. So just to have in mind what price points and what will they look like for you. So partnership pricing. So an example of that is often I would refer to it as neighbourhood pricing. Some would call it local partners. So where a customer or a visitor perhaps is staying in your hotel, and the hotel has made arrangements maybe with local experience providers or perhaps other local venues, where if the guest staying with them presents their key card at the other business, they might receive a 10% or a 20% discount depending on the type of agreement. It could be a local craft shop, for example. If they go and they shop there, they get a discount. This is important again, that you're positioning that retail price point to allow for that. I often find that the partnership pricing can be a really good one in terms of it works both ways. You're offering from the experience provider, you're giving the hotel a reason to recommend you. And from the hotel's perspective, perhaps at reception there, they're able to make recommendations and they're giving that extra value for money to their customers staying with them because they're giving them that local insight. And like, it doesn't always have to be a high discount, it's just a reason to go. So again, just keeping in mind that when we're setting our retail price point, that we're allowing for that little bit of an offset of a discount there. So thinking about our strategies for pricing, you must take responsibility, okay? You personally have to take responsibility for your own long-term success. That involves ensuring you're doing your homework. I always say get the calculator out, or maybe you're planning it with pen and paper. But we need to be really, really clear on what your costs are and what you're including in the price, so that when you're quoting or you're putting packages and offers together, it's really, really vital then that you're given clear instruction. And when I refer to that clear instruction, I mean that the business is clearly communicating what's included in the price point so that the consumer is 100% aware of what they're getting, that value for money, or perhaps if it's on a B2B level, that the other business is aware of exactly what's there. This way, the business can ensure that your experience or the service is delivered to meet expectation set by prices. Okay, so all the calculators. So just to reiterate, expressing value in your pricing, okay, a useful tip for expressing the value is to price and to bullet point. So once you've decided upon the price point, you can bullet point all of those inclusions, okay? For example, if like say food or drink is included, I would always say include the exact measurements wherever possible. Give those clear instructions, and that way then we're certain that there's going to be no misunderstanding on either side. And it can be really good just to have that detailed on your own website, or perhaps when the booker is going through to the booking stage, that they're really clear on that. I'm going to show you an example here of a pricing grid that's laid out. So this is a chocolate tasting session. So you can see, the experience name, the short description. You can see really clearly here the minimum numbers, the maximum numbers they can take, the duration, how long it is, and then their price per person. Okay, so this type of grid is really, really useful, particularly when you're engaging in B2B pricing. And you can see there the inclusions are bullet pointed. So it's really, really laid out clearly, and it's, nicely, I suppose, easy to understand for everybody in avoiding any confusion. Looking at it, say, on the website, I love this example here, the Sea Cave kayaking experience. It's really, really clearly detailed what the experience should expect for the price point. The business is showing there it's approximately 3 hours. They have this fully guided expert, what they're going to see, where they're going to be, what they're going to feel even, and they have included that there is hot chocolate and snack, and they've highlighted that here. They've told exactly what to bring so the customer knows, and they've highlighted really nicely here, with the symbols and exactly what's included. So there's no confusion on either side. It's crystal clear what the business is including and what the customer needs to bring. So I can see at a glance exactly what I'm getting, say for the price of £60. I know right away what I'm getting. So I'm going to show you now how you can build out your price point, okay? So first of all, there's different strategies for creating your price point. I'm going to talk about the 4 most common strategies when you're calculating your price point. So the first one being the cost plus model. Okay, so this is working out your costs and then adding on the desired profit. So you know your costs and you decide what profit you want, and that's the cost plus model. Number 2 is a competitor based. So with that, you're benchmarking your pricing against your competitors. Okay, so by that you might say, right, I suppose stick with kayaking. I'm a kayak provider. They're offering kayaking up the road. They're £30. I'll go for £30 as well. We need to be thinking about that. Do they have the same equipment? Are they including the same things you're including? So that's competitor based. Number 3, objectively assessing the value. What do you feel the experience is worth? Looking at your strengths and looking at what's included. So that's you personally thinking what's it worth. And then consumer value. So looking at it from the consumer's or the customer's perspective, what's the perceived value and what is the customer willing to pay? So again, I often say with the consumer value, sometimes it's better to get someone other than yourself, because when you're in it and you're close to the business. So ask someone outside of the business, someone you can trust. What do they feel it is worth, and what do they feel is value for money? It's really important. Looking at each of these, as I say, with the competitor price, you don't know if you're pricing like for like. Maybe you have got new equipment. Perhaps you're including something extra in that. Is the timelines the same? What is the value? What do you feel it's worth? And then what is the consumer's perspective? So really, it's important that each one of these on their own are not effective, but the ideal solution would be to blend the strategies together for you to arrive at the right price point for your experience, for your offering, for your accommodation, whatever that may be, by blending those strategies. So look at each of them, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then blend them together that you're going to come up with the right price point for you and for your own business. Once you've set that retail price point, you need to be thinking in the back of your mind about the B2B pricing, that business to business. So in other words, to plan your B2B price point, you will need your number 1, your cost of sale. Number 2, that break-even point. What does that look like? And number 3, the retail price point. Okay. You'll need to have worked out your costs. It's really essential that you have worked them out accurately. To do this, you need to be considering fixed costs, for example, things like insurance, payroll, maybe repairs in the business, maintenance, and you need to be thinking about your variable prices or your variable costs, excuse me. So variable costs could be things like, food and drink. Um, the numbers of people may vary in your particular offering. Do you have brochures? Is there audio guides, for example? Is there mementos, keepsakes? And just keeping in mind that numbers can change based on the number of people booked. So what do those variable costs look like? So really, really important that we've worked that out before you even think about um, moving into looking at the retail price point. So to calculate your price point, you need to keep in mind your retail price point needs to accommodate any discounts needed for business to business pricing. So as I say, you're going to work out your break even price point so that just in this example, say it's £5, it's covering your costs and that's you to break even. And from that, then you'll decide that your retail price point is £10. That's the point that you want to sell at. So therefore, your B2B or your partnership price could range between the £6 and the £9. So the price point between the retail and the break even is that opportunity for negotiation when it comes to engaging with B2B partners. Your retail price needs to accommodate any discounts, including that B2B pricing. And you need to keep in mind that the discount or the B2B price is hooking off the retail price point. So all the time that this is set accurately and that you're comfortable with that retail price point to allow for B2B or partnership pricing along the way. Okay. When we're thinking about calculations, and revenue generation all the time, we would like stable revenue generation, so throughout all of your calculating and your planning, I want you to keep in mind that the business really needs stable revenue generation. And if you establish your prices correctly from the outset, you're going to be able to go after diverse opportunities. You're going to be able to go after diverse markets, diverse channels. You're going to be able to engage in direct and indirect business. So always keeping in mind reputational pricing, knowing that fair pricing is going to encourage repeat customers, it's going to encourage visitors returning. Um, but very, very important that for yourself, in your own business, that you have that sort of stable pillar or pyramid, as I would call it here, that you've got that established base business, and then you can build out on that base, and then you can fill it out. So, in other words, established base business, like is that repeat business? So that could be maybe a series, for example. Maybe you'll get a regular coach operator that might come to you. Maybe it's a loyal regular group that comes to you, once a year. That's repeat. Then you have your ad hoc business. Okay, so that's a one-off piece of business that you might receive via a group booking or maybe some individuals. Maybe it'll come via a travel agent. Maybe it'll come direct. That ad hoc business is there. Then you have your individuals, and these are your direct customers that are booking. They're finding you on Keep Discovering Northern Ireland. They're finding you, on your own website, and they're, kind of the cream on the top. So we need to have that base established that is really steady. We need to build that out, and then we need to fill that out from the top. All the time thinking about the different segments and having that mix, of diverse sales channels, diverse markets, diverse customer segments. And our ultimate goal is to have year-round revenue generation so that throughout the year you're going to be open for business, ideally, and that you're going to be bringing in that continuous revenue. Really, really important. I want to highlight for you some resources from Tourism Northern Ireland, and also just to reference some business to business pricing supports as well for you. So there is excellent pricing support online on the Tourism Northern Ireland website, and I would recommend that you do a little bit of homework after this webinar when you get a chance, that you take time to read through this and you can sit down and work out your own costs. There's really good tips there on defining your products and services. Um, there's really good helpful points on how you can collaborate with others and how you can work out, what your products and services cost to deliver. So really, really worth having a look there, that T&I price and support. The pricing strategy templates, okay? I love these because again, you can go straight in, you can download the templates for experiences, and there's also templates there for accommodation providers. So it covers both. They're really useful when it comes to helping you working out your costs. And you will be surprised, you know, when you sit down and you put it just to make sure that you're not missing anything and that you're getting it right for your own business. So you'll find those pricing strategy templates on the TNI website also. I mentioned earlier TXGB, so that's the Tourism Exchange. This is a platform designed to help you access new routes to market at reduced commission costs, okay? So it does this by connecting tourism business with a range of local and international distributors. And by joining the Tourism Exchange, you can actually do that free, and it's quite simple as the exchange connects to your own existing booking technology. And I think for people who maybe don't even have a booking system for themselves yet, you can actually set that up through TXGB's inventory loading tool. So it's really, really great if you want to get started selling online, really useful. So again, you can find that through the TNI website. You'll get more information there on how to grow your sales. And again, just to be seen, you know, to be really visible out there in the marketplace. So TXGB. And just to mention the e-learning platform, okay? So Tourism Northern Ireland have now an e-learning platform set up, okay? And at this stage, you can register to make sure that you are first to get the information, and there will be e-modules being added on this. I know there's one coming soon on the B2B pricing. So again, you know, for yourselves that want to engage in that business to business pricing. So you'll be able to go in there and have a look, but just make sure you're registered. So again, just hop into the e-learning platform information sessions. It's just your name, business address, and your contact email. And if you're registered there, you'll be first to find out what's happening and get registered for those great modules that are coming up. So key takeaways from today. Okay, so what are your takeaways? Ensure that you do your homework. Okay, thinking about those costs, do your research, thinking about long-term sustainable business, avoiding price escalation, you know, thinking long-term for sustainable businesses, and avoiding price escalation for short-term gain, you know, all the time thinking of that reputational long-term, and being responsible for your own pricing is going to really benefit your personal reputation and the destination of Northern Ireland. So really, really important that we protect your business and we protect the destination of Northern Ireland. You know, keep in mind our Embrace a Giant Spirit branding. You know, we're here to share our spirits and I suppose to deliver on each of these inspirers for our visitors. You know, number one, big heartedness. Number two, legends and stories. Number three, originality. And four, land, water, and sea. You are all part of Team Northern Ireland, and I really wish you every success managing your pricing in your own tourism business and the success going forward in creating revenue generation for your own business. So I'm going to hand you back now to Patricia.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Wow, I didn't think you could squeeze that much into 50 minutes or 49 minutes. So well done indeed. It's just so much to take in there. I suppose this is a good point to let everyone know that we will be sharing a recording of Elaine's live presentation, but we also have a link to her slides that we're going to upload on our website, and they'll be available shortly after the session here today. You can download those and go through them again at your leisure and at your own pace, or pick out certain sections within there that you would like to delve into a little bit more. So everyone who signed up for today's session will receive a link via email once that's all ready. And if you're watching the recording of the session on our YouTube channels, you'll be able to access supporting materials on our dedicated tourism enterprise development page. So if you just head to tourismandI.com/TED, that's TED, then you'll be able to find the resources from this session, but also any of our recent previous sessions as well. So as we mentioned earlier, I'll shortly be sharing your questions with Elaine. So if you do have a question and you haven't popped it into the question box just yet, there's still a little bit of time. So go ahead and do that now, and we will pick up as many as we possibly can in our 10 remaining minutes here today. So go ahead with those. But in the meantime, just before we get stuck in, I'm going to do a couple of very quick polls. So the first one will pop up on your screen here shortly. That's how would you rate today's session in terms of overall satisfaction? So that's on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being extremely satisfied. So I'll just give you a moment to place your answers there. Okay, our second question today is how would you rate today's webinar in terms of content and relevance to your business? So again, on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being extremely relevant. It's like fastest finger first. Okay, and the final one is just a simple yes or no question, and that's do you plan to take any action within your business as a direct result of what you've heard from Elaine today? Thank you so much. That really is so helpful. And as I always say, we will be sending out an evaluation in the follow-up email that you'll get for this, a little link, and that gives you an opportunity to give us a bit more information about anything else that you would like to see or any specific comments. There'll be some open-ended comment questions in that, so you can share some additional feedback with us at that stage. So now, Elaine, thank you so much again. Let's get stuck into to some of our questions that we've received, and we'll get through as many as we possibly can here this morning. So the first one we have is someone who was just wondering what are the pros and cons of pricing accommodation at a flat rate across the whole year versus going with a seasonal and a weekday or weekend variations. Is there any advice you could give on that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So accommodation provider. Okay, so I suppose mostly in my experience in accommodation, we would have always opted with dynamic pricing, where the pricing is seasonal, and therefore we would have had maybe 4 seasons between low, busy, off shoulder season, and then the peak season. So I suppose it's different for everybody in terms of what are your resources and what does that look like. Like obviously maybe for the larger guest houses or hotels, they will have someone sitting within a revenue office who has time to look at dynamic pricing and use grids like we showed earlier. But if it's perhaps a B&B and you're there yourself, you're not maybe necessarily going to have the time to commit to those flexing rates and moving rates. So what I would say is you really need to sit down, pen to paper, and decide for yourself how does that look in terms of calculations. If you have a fixed rate throughout the year, are you charging too little perhaps in the peak season? Are you charging too much in the lower season? Do you want that shoulder piece of business? So I would encourage a bit of seasonality, to certainly encourage the shoulder business if that's what you want. But perhaps, if it's a case that it's not for everybody dynamic pricing because it is time consuming, and it's really important that if it's done, that it's done right. So as I suppose it's personal to each individual business. Both works, but you need to take into account the time that it takes you resource wise to be being dynamic. So it's individual to each. So hopefully that answers it for you.
Hopefully that has helped. Absolutely. We have here a question from a self-catering property who really wants to maximise on the opportunity of the open golf, which is coming next July. So they were wondering if you could give advice on how can you get the balance right to make sure you're making the most of this opportunity, but without, I suppose, going too far or milking it too far, or for future longevity, really, Elaine.
Sure. Okay. Really good question. Yes, thank you. So look, it's such an amazing opportunity. I mean, Northern Ireland is going to be promoted there on a world stage, so it's fantastic. So really, really important actually that you get this right. And I suppose like that, you look at your pricing, what is it? What is the value? What is it worth? And what should you be charging? And I'd be very cautious to not overcharge here. I mean, it would be tempting if you're just, thinking short-term gain to just whack those prices up. And perhaps, you will receive bookings, but you can also find often people will decide to stay further away and travel in, or
Mm-hmm.
people may not book at all, so it can actually be very detrimental for you. So I'd be very cautious of kind of just pricing fair. Um, you'll still make a profit for yourself. And I do believe that it's going to be a busy time, so there'll be enough to go around for everyone. But I'd be very cautious of not overpricing, because you will affect your own reputation in the long term.
Okay, that's super. We do have here someone who is wondering, what if, I think this is quite an apt one, what if you have priced incorrectly or with rising costs? How can you go about promoting your increased costs and protect your reputation? Obviously, capital costs have gone up very, very significantly in recent times. So is there any advice that you can give on the safest and best way to do that? I think that's very pertinent at the minute with the way things are.
Yeah, absolutely. And a really good question as well. Yeah. So again, I suppose in that case, you've owned it, like you have priced incorrectly initially. So it's, you're going to have to reevaluate and redo that. So I think it's really important that you look at, for example, what is included in your price point? What extra value do you offer, so that when you do change those prices, be it visible online, that you can really call out maybe those added value pieces, and that you can justify the price increase, for example, and that the customer can see what it is that they're receiving for that. And like that, when we are pricing, and particularly when we're in the service industry, people are aware that they're paying maybe more for something, so everything else rolls in behind it. We're much less likely to complain when something is of absolute value for us, but when something is exceeding, you're getting into that difficult area. So keeping it fair, covering yourself, but still offering value for money. But there's no issue changing the price once you can set it out on paper, but be really clear about what's included. I think, and particularly here in Northern Ireland, we're very modest, and we don't always call out what's included. We take it for granted that they should know these things are included. So by including that, and by calling that out really, really clearly, shows that value piece as well that you're offering.
Okay, that's great. We have a guide related question here. So in relation to rates for step-on guides on coach tours. So that would you recommend, or is there any advice you can give on whether rates should normally be agreed per person on the coach, or a set fee for each tour, or any guidance at all that you could offer on that at all?
Okay, so yeah, so for a tour guide that's been hired by a coach company, I take it that's what you're mean
I
there.
think so.
Yeah, so generally speaking, this would be per tour, or per coach, or per, so it would be a set fee. And how you would work that is you would think of your time. So it's a time fee really, and obviously a knowledge fee for you yourself and your delivery, as opposed to per person pricing, because it doesn't really change for you whether there's 10 people on the coach or 20 people. And, generally speaking, the operators prefer to work that out on a set fee. Now, I would say for maybe someone who's perhaps a walking guide, for example, and like that, you have a set fee. If it's a situation whereby after maybe 20 people, you have to bring in a second guide, there's an additional cost for you. So in that case, you may price per person in that instance. But generally speaking, it's a set fee. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay, that's really helpful. We have a visitor attraction here. I'm conscious that we're coming up to the hour, but because I wanted to cover
All
just a
right.
couple more questions, and then
No problem.
we've had some great ones through. So a visitor attraction that does have fixed pricing, so it's actually a museum. So you can buy tickets online or walk in on the day, with discounts available for families. But they're trying to build a pricing strategy for larger groups, so groups of 10 or more, and that would have to be pre-arranged. So an element of that probably is B2B, working with tour operators and things as well. So they're just really wondering, how do they begin to build a fair pricing strategy, looking at that groups kind of area of things. Is there any advice you could give there, Liam?
Yeah, okay. So like that, perhaps with the groups there, there's going to be a guide with them the whole time. So, in that case, what I've seen often done, if you know of open to the public that maybe it's particularly quiet, say for example between 11 and 12, and that's your low demand time, you could offer a slight discount there for the groups, because that's the time that you want to fill, and you're not really seeing many walk-ins at that time. So that would be a good way around that. And at the same time, you're not discounting too much off your general rates, because it's at a low demand time anyway. The same way as in if you were trying to think seasonality wise, that you're trying to attract maybe schools or educational groups that you could invite in the off season or the shoulder season, that you'd be able to offer them at a different price point to keep that year-round revenue there.
Okay, that's super. Thank you so much. I think we've covered the majority of questions there. So if there's any thing that's maybe a little bit more specific to an individual business, we'll review any questions that came through, and we might be able to come back to you directly afterwards. But thank you so much, and thank you for everyone for being so engaged and asking your questions for Elaine. And thank you, Elaine, for providing all that additional advice on top of all those slides. I'm just going to take a wee moment just to talk about some other upcoming activity. We've now opened registrations for our first masterclass for the 24-25 Tourism Enterprise Development season. So our Leaner and Greener masterclass, Telling Your Sustainability Story, is going to be taking place on Monday, the 7th of October. It's at the National Football Stadium at Windsor Park. So we're going to a bit of a different venue this time. And as you may know, we've had our Leaner and Greener dedicated climate action programme running for some time, which aims to support tourism businesses on their green journey. So this will be continuing that journey, and during this masterclass session, we'll be joined by Tina O'Dwyer and are going to be touching on the points again about taking steps to address energy, water waste and food waste. But we're also going to be taking a look at the importance of storytelling for your sustainability journey and how to tell your sustainable stories with avoiding the pitfalls of greenwashing and also green hushing, which is the term that's new to me that I've been chatting to Tina about. So I really hope some of you can join us again in October for that in-person masterclass, and the full details are at tourismandI.com/TED. So just pop over there and have a look and see if that's something that would be of interest to you. Also, if you're not signed up to tourismandI.com, please do. So if you head on to tourismandI.com, there's a little login sign up on the top right hand corner. If you're on a desktop, it might be slightly different on your phone, but it just a few little details in there, and it means you can be sure that you're hearing about any upcoming opportunities that are coming up. But also that's what the first step to signing up for our e-learning platform, which I know Elaine mentioned earlier, which has lots of useful modules on there, and certainly we'll have some pricing modules coming soon, I believe. So be sure to be signed up for that so that you can make sure you can avail of those when the time comes. So we're okay. We're 3 minutes over. That's not too bad considering how much we've covered today. So thank you so much once again, Elaine, for your presentation today. Thanks also to Barry and Eden from Eventful, who have been behind the scenes monitoring all your questions for us and keeping everything running smoothly. So thanks to those guys. And thank you so much to everyone that has given us their Monday morning and joined us here this morning. So hopefully welcome you along again to another webinar or one of our in-person events. But thank you so much and goodbye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.